Howdy, soldiers.
You better believe she has a microphone now.
It was my birthday last week, and you bet the best birthday gift of all is good sound quality. Also, I already can tell this is going to be a very long video, so I decided that I need to be caffeinated and hydrated, so I'm trying this frothed latte thing. Let's see if I can get you guys a really good sound. Are you ready? Oh snap, that's delicious. This is great. I'm not sponsored, but ooh, that's delightful. Going along with my promise to do a queer book related video every week in June, today we are talking about one of my favorite things to read, the floaty fruits, the quantum queers, the space gays, if you will. Today's video is all about queer sci-fi. We have young adult to adult, we have ones that are vaguely space related to other ones that are fully in some galaxy that I cannot pronounce. We have romance, we have found family, we have quantum physics, we have space adventures, we have some wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey stuff. The genre of sci-fi encompasses so much that it's hard to pinpoint when a book starts and stops being sci-fi, as well as a lot of young adult books tend to genre blend and genre bend, so some of these might be a lighter sci-fi or a quirkier sci-fi than maybe a traditional sci-fi reader would expect. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in as we go across the galaxy to talk about all the quantum queers that you could possibly hope for. To begin with, we are going to start with one that's going to ease you into sci-fi. You know, if maybe you're like me and you're a mostly fantasy reader, or you just really like dystopians in the early 2010s. One of my favorite sapphic sci-fis is A Gearbreakers by Zoe Hanimikuta. This is a dystopian sci-fi that takes place in the country of Gondolia, where the tyrannical government has started creating these giant metal mech bots to serve as their military. And we follow two girls, Sona, who is one of these wind-up mech-bot pilots, who is also herself somewhat cybernetic, and Eris, a Gearbreaker, who's part of the rebellion. During a raid gone wrong, the two of them team up to get out of the facility that Eris is being held in, and even though Sona is an outsider, she is taken into the rebels to help try to take down Gondolia from the inside out. This is a sapphic Pacific Rim meets Transformers. It's cool as hell. All these mech bots are so flipping cool. They can just like turn into things. Some of them have the sword arm, and they have wings, and now they can fly. This isn't an intergalactic spaceship sci-fi. This is a more dystopian, down-to-earth sci-fi, which makes it way more accessible and allows you to focus more on the found family aspect, which is so fun. I love every one of the rebels, but if I had to live in that family, I would go crazy. Sona is a grade 1 badass. I would love to be her, and I'm sure anybody that has bad eyesight and needs to wear glasses would also like to be her. Maybe the government is not thinking hard enough on their recruitment strategies. Maybe they just need to be like, hey, anybody who's nearsighted, sign up to our offices and we'll give you a free eye implant, and like, Gondolia, hit me up for your next recruitment strategy meeting. So if you need a gateway sci-fi, this is a great one. Plus, the sequel comes out later this year, and as soon as it's in my hands, I am going to act up. Speaking of acting up, another fantastic sci-fi adjacent novel that also, now that I realize, has to do with mech bots. You really like Sapphire here, but you wanted Pacific Rim to be a little bit more feminist, and you liked Yu-Gi-Oh! Growing up, may I highly recommend Iron Widow by Shiren J. Zhao. This is a sci-fi fantasy mashup based loosely on China's first empress and centers around a world where humans have created these giant mech bots called chrysalises to fight off this alien war. And to pilot these suits, you need a male pilot and a female concubine pilot who will give up her life force to be able to pilot the robot. Our main character, Jeitan's sister, was sacrificed to one of these pilots, and so she goes to gain revenge, only to give herself the moniker of the Iron Widow when she ends up accidentally killing her male co-pilot. She is then paired with Shimin in hopes that he will tame some of Shiran's mental strength, but the two of them end up becoming this amazing power couple who are kicking ass and taking names, and when her childhood best friend gets involved, the three of them become this amazing poly power throuple who are taking down Huaxia from the inside. This is fear, this is power, this is rage, and you can feel it across the galaxy. There is commentary on gender and gender roles and sexuality in the future, as well as a lot of government conspiracies, taking over patriarchal societies, and reevaluating what it means to be powerful. Like, page 1 hits you, and it does not stop. I could not put this book down, and you can bet that the day that the sequel comes out, I'm gonna be using all of my feminine ferocity to just put my elbows up and run through the crowd to be able to get a signed copy of this. Okay, so let's say even just those two were like a little intense for you. I'm like, I get it. You know, sci-fi traditionally is pretty dense, and there's usually a lot going on, there's a lot of fights. Maybe you want something that's like a cozier sci-fi, or something that focuses more on the found family aspect that's in a lot of sci-fi, like, you know, Firefly, which is the best sci-fi series ever. Fight me. So the next group of books I'm going to recommend are more lower stakes, kind of cozier sci-fi, that you have enough quantum physics in it, so you're like, it seems legit, but it won't take away from your enjoyment by giving you a headache trying to figure out all those math formulas. First up is a true classic of this subgenre, and that is Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. God, I love me a good long title. Becky Chambers is the space empress of sci-fi novels. She, can't stop, won't stop, and I love her for it. This lovely novel focuses on the crew of the Wayfarer, this junky transport ship that gets a job drilling wormholes in space. And our main character Rosemary joins the crew to escape her old uptight life on Earth and meets a lovely cast of quirky queer aliens, and we follow them through a journey of work and play and love and family. And I'm down to talk about some morality and some alien culture and some humanity questions and what makes us human amongst the greatest backdrop of the stars and the galaxies and all those other unknown species and creatures that are undeniably in our solar system somewhere, along with talking about general connections and what connects us as people and how and why we create bonds with those that we do. And then there's some lasers and some spacecraft mumbo jumbo and just enough astrophysics that it sounds legit to me, an arts major. This is just such a wonderful book. I wholeheartedly recommend this and this series, but do be warned, you might cry at the end. And then, after you finish Long Way to a Small Angry Planet and you have this kind of found family in space hangover, I have the perfect remedy for you, and that is The Light Between Uncommon Stars by Raika Aoki. This has a little bit more of a fantasy element to it, and Raika just seamlessly weaves fantasy and sci-fi together. She is a professional violinist, and you can tell that music plays a huge part in her life because the way that she writes about music is just so reverent and detailed and intense. And as somebody who cannot play a musical instrument to save her life, I felt like I could waltz into a violin shop and start playing some Beethoven? No, that's piano. It centers around a handful of protagonists, one being Katrina, who is a trans girl trying to gain fame as a violinist, and her trainer, who has a Faustian bargain with a demon to take the souls of her trainees using a cursed violin. But we also follow an alien family who set up a donut shop and their trials and tribulations of becoming retail owners. Now, this book is extraordinarily clever and very, very hilarious, but it also has such a deep and raw look into trans issues and the queer experience. Parts of this are going to be very hard to read, but there are also such wonderful scenes of hope and love. So my best recommendation for picking this up is to have a box of donuts nearby, because if you don't start off wanting one, you will want one by the end of it. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I personally love a good arranged marriage but falling in love by proxy trope. And Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell was one of my favorite books that I read last year. This follows our main character, Prince Kiam, who is a extraneous I just graduated with an English degree. I should know how to say this. An extraneous heir to a galactic empire who is tasked by the emperor herself into an arranged political marriage with the husband of his cousin who has mysteriously died. And the two of them are put together and accidentally sort of team up to solve a possible murder. But of course, while they're involved in this political conspiracy, the two of them spend a lot of time together and they slowly fall in love. This is the sci-fi equivalent of like court intrigue if you like fantasy, and I happen to love that, so I was entertained till the end. And while this does have a major romantic plot in it, it is not fully a romantic book. Like, there's still a lot of politics and power plays, especially with all the super cool world building that she did. Like, there are all these other societies and planets and like solar system galactic governments. It's both heartwarming and heartbreaking to watch the two of them kind of dance around each other at first, because it's obviously a marriage that neither of them really wanted. The way that they grow to connect and trust one another just gives me so many feelings. And lastly on this list of slightly lower stakes sci-fi, which I think has a ring to it, we're going to talk about one that I don't currently have because I gave it to a friend to read, and that is The Circus Infinite by Con Wong. I happened to interview Con Wong for this book, so you can go check that out. But this centers around Jess, who is a person with the ability to manipulate gravity, and they have just escaped from the facility that they have been kept at, and while on the run they go to a pleasure moon named Persephone 9, where they fall in and get a job with a circus troupe. It goes so much into different cultures and different worlds and how supernatural abilities work, but only if you're like on your home world. And then there's these aliens that can like see through space and time. God, Kush Onar is a gem. I love him. Like, so what if he's an 8-foot tall praying mantis alien? Who cares? I don't discriminate over here. But when a crime boss gets involved in the circus, he and his new friends are trying to find a way to take him down without exposing Jess and his abilities. And yes, I did just say this is in the low stakes section, and like, taking down a crime boss is probably like not in that category traditionally. The focus of this book is definitely on Jess and the way that he sees himself, and then also the connections and family of the circus. And as an ex-theater kid, I love seeing the razzmatazz of backstage. I can't help it, it's muscle memory. Someone says black box and like, I'm ready to perform. Okay, so this next one, I didn't quite know where to put it because it's just a wild read. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and it's so hard to pitch to people. So let's see if I can properly pitch this David Bowie in American Idol, but also the Hunger Games mashup that was Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. So once every cycle, the Metagalactic Grand Prix rolls through the galaxy, taking a contestant from every planet that has sentient creatures to compete in a galaxy-wide talent show, where the loser will have their planet and their species destroyed. And what do you know? Earth is the latest planet that is being roped into the competition, and our main character is a washed-up rock star who accidentally gets recruited to represent us. Like, this book is just a combination of alien politics, glittery lipstick, and pyrotechnics. You could also compare it to the feedback sound that a mic makes when you turn it on but no one's speaking into it. Okay, hold on, I have to change my lighting setup because this is so bright. The world building, or should I say the galaxy building, is what sells this book to me. It is so unique and existential in the best, most sparkly way possible. There's a lot of stuff in here on humanity and morality and mortality and what does it mean to not be alone in the universe. And my favorite thing is, what does it mean to not be alone in the universe and not know about it? There's actually a very cool thing that I learned in one of my physics classes. Yes, your girl took a physics class. I still don't know how I passed it with a B-. But the idea that us on Earth is you're putting out radio signals in a loop around us. And maybe we're only doing this loop, but we're not doing this loop. So if we change the way that we put out those signals, maybe we would discover more. Or maybe, like, we're in an orbit over here, and there's another sentient planet with an orbit over here, and we would never know about each other because those orbits haven't met yet. That blew my mind. So big shout out to my professor, Dr. Joanna Wu, who studies the expansion of the universe. It was a very cool class. She doesn't know who I am, but that's okay. Okay, so this next portion of the video, we are going to fully embody the idea of be gay, do crime, but do it in space. So these next three will be some of my favorite space heists, because I fully respect a crew with a goal in mind, the first of which being City of Shattered Light by Claire Wynn. After stealing an important piece of tech from her family's labs, Eris Aza goes on the run and is picked up by Riven, an outlaw and gunslinger. During a kidnapping, which could very easily be mistaken as a big misunderstanding, the two of them, along with Riven's crew, have to all team up to help take down a malevolent AI that is slowly taking over the city on this backwater planet of Requiem. This is a neon-soaked tech adventure heist that focuses on friendship and family dynamics, underworld mafia, bounty hunters, sisterhood, and first love, as obviously our two leads start to feel something for each other. We have nutrient cubes, we have EDM party music, we have pew 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 space phasers, and I loved all of it. It is colorful and sapphic and so fun and fast. I think I got through this in a day. Oh no, this goes to show how bad I am at watching movies. Okay, this reminds me of a combination of the world, like the visual world from the terrible movie The Ghost in the Shell, but then also in, oh, what's the other movie with the girl with the short red hair and the bandage, the white bandage outfit, who's like way too young for Bruce Willis, and it's really creepy. That movie, combined with the Jedi fights of both the old Star Wars, but then like if Rey was gay and they had a sapphic romance. That's what this book reminds me of. Next up is not sapphic, but no less colorful and no less fun. Let's talk about Crown Chasers by Rebecca Coffindaffer, which is also one of the most amazing names I've ever heard. This is Fast and Furious in space with gay teenagers. Our main character, Alessia, is an heir to a galactic throne when her uncle, who is currently reigning emperor, falls ill, and he decides, instead of naming her heir, to hold the Crown Chase, which is a space race competition that is full of clues that whoever beats the race first will gain a galactic kingdom, I guess, which is a pretty sweet deal. But while Alessia and her crew, including an ex of hers on board, are trying to solve the next clue, they end up finding themselves in the middle of, wouldn't you know it, a galactic-wide conspiracy. And it was just along my ability to understand how time and sound and gravity work in space, most of the time I was just going like, yeah, sure, that seems legit, good enough. Something about like, you go faster if you're sexy. I don't know how physics works. It's quippy, it's snappy, it's unapologetically queer. Oh man, this plot twist at the end was like, ooh, it pulled a real, oh no, what movie was it? Laura Dern was somebody with blonde hair. It pulled some big sci-fi tropes and like, it was good, okay? Trust me. Oh no, wait, did she have purple hair? It might have been one of the Star Wars movies. Was it a Star Trek movie? I don't know, I haven't been to the movie theater in like 5 years. And to round out these three, I'm talking about one of my all-time favorite sci-fis, period. Seven Devils by Laura Lamb and Elizabeth May was a freaking banger. I say the exact same joke for this every time I mention it. It is a bunch of gays in space making poor decisions. And you know what? It remains the best way to sum this book up. I just spent the last 6 months of my life wrapping up my degree, okay? Like, I don't have any more brain cells left. I have to make new jokes. Like, old jokes are all I got. This book follows Eris, who is the heiress of a galactic tyrannical empire where her father has just, like, fucked over the galaxy, like, real hard. Like, everybody is under this kind of mind control, you know, we're drinking nutrient smoothies, and, like, people are being grown in vats. But after uncovering a space conspiracy, Eris joins the rebellion and is teamed up with a pilot who cannot stand her, but the two of them end up going on a mission where they find some stowaways that happen to know more about the Empire than they ever could. Not gonna lie, this world is bleak. Like, we are not getting a lot of hope or joy. So while there's no moral saints in this book, you know, they're all doing their best, and I can't exactly fault them for that. There's a lot of stuff about gender and gender in politics, and especially how women control and manipulate the system. I love the wonderful queer femme-found family that we get in this. There's so much diversity and intersectionality in this book as well, especially with the different types of queer relationships, and we're talking about mental illnesses, we're talking about different cultures and how people see different cultures, and then also people who are not able-bodied. There's veterans with amputated limbs and people with cybernetic implants. You gotta trust me on this one and pick it up. Like, I can't say better things about more terrible people. Okay, now, so we're down to our last two, and I've saved these ones for last because these are the more traditional sci-fi novels that I have in my repertoire. But also keep in mind that these are not like heavy, hardcore, like uber sci-fi novels like a Expanse or like a other sci-fi novel. The first of these final two novels goes more into space culture, and I happen to love that. This book heavily focuses on diversity, intersectionality, colonialization, race, gender, and technology. That is First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. And the best part of it, it's shiny! One of the first characters you follow is First Sister, who belongs to a church cult in space that acts as comfort women to soldiers in the army. And as a gift for winning a battle, she is gifted to Saito Ren, who is a fearsome commander, but the Sisterhood commands that she spy on Saito Ren, and their relationship goes off to a very rocky start. On the other hand, we follow Leto Lucius, who is a ex-soldier who Saito Ren killed his best friend in the army, and he has a vendetta against her. But after talking to a few new people in the city's underworld, he realizes that there is more to the story than he thought. This is a beautifully intense story about the right to your own body and fighting for what you believe in, but also deciding who or what you will give allegiance and loyalty to. Now, if pre-pandemic you loved to travel and like exploring a new city was your thing, you're gonna love this book because we get to go to Mercury, we get to go to Venus, we get to go to Mars. We do, I think, at one point go to Earth briefly. We get to go to a bunch of space stations. Like, truly the air miles you're gonna rack up from this book is just astronomical. We get to explore new cities and new architecture, new technologies, like every couple of chapters, especially the way that they talk about some of the alien beings, or even like the evolution of humans in the future based on what planet we're on. You get a beautifully written sci-fi with 3 interconnected plot lines by a lovely non-binary author, folks. What more could you want? Okay. We made it to the final book recommendation, and I think all of you know what it's going to be. It's impossible to make a gay sci-fi video without mentioning Lesbian Necromancers in Space, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is a fantasy sci-fi full of sword-wielding lesbians that I would love to step on me, and you know I love me some bone magic. Harrow Hark, last name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, is the reverend daughter and heir to the 9th House of Necromancers. When the Overseer and Emperor of all 9 families of Necromancers calls for a competition, she and Gideon, her Lancer, put aside their differences, sort of, and pack their bags to travel to a backwater planet where all the heirs and their companions are drawn into a deadly competition. Come on, we all love Harrow and Gideon. There's snark, there's meme references, there's a lot of fashionable black clothing, though I will say, this book is a little bit misrepresented because a lot of people go into it expecting it to be enemies to lovers. It is funny and gory, and there's definitely some sexual tension, but it's not like maybe what people say it is. The two of them definitely are attracted to one another, but it's not romantic because they truly hate each other. With their history, they do not like one another. So I think pitching it as a romance makes the reader expect something else. So if you go into it expecting it to be more of like a magical sci-fi mystery with a little bit of flirting in there, I think you're gonna enjoy it a lot more. But it's also super trippy because there's a lot of stuff about blood and bloodlines and genetics, but also magic, but also death, but also memory. Like, you truly... And also, I could say this for the sequel, Harrow the Ninth, half the time you have no idea what's going on. But then you get to the end and you're like, what did I just read? And while I'm sure every horror enthusiast and their mother and everyone that follows them on TikTok has already picked this up, if you haven't, I would highly recommend giving it a read. So there you have it. There is a full but in no means comprehensive guide to queer sci-fi. And like I always say, I'm probably gonna miss some, so please leave your recommendations in the comments below. It is so warm in here, but I can't open my window because then my neighbors would hear me yelling. Even though I'm pretty sure they can already hear me yelling, but like, hey, they're gonna get some great book recommendations out of it. I feel like it wasn't summer for so long, and now suddenly it's summer, and me and my sweat glands are woefully unprepared. This last year has definitely been a year of experimenting with what I'm reading. Like, I used to be fully YA, and specifically YA fantasy, and while I definitely still am that now, you know, don't get that twisted. That's not going anywhere. This last year, I've read so much more adult romance, and I'm getting more into sci-fi novels, and I'm having a great time. Also, if you're feeling spicy, leave me a space fact down below, because even though I'm slightly terrified of the existentialism of a forever expanding universe, of which we can only see back so far based on the technology that we currently have, I still think it's really fascinating. You know where to click to like the video, you know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!